Welcome to the Black Script Storytellers. My name is Kevin Marable, and today our guest is an infinite hyphenate who is a two-time Emmy-nominated, multi-award winning actor, writer, playwright, director, and producer, as well as a lecturer at USC School of Dramatic Arts. He is also one of the writers for all four seasons of the Miss Pat Show on BET Plus. The super talented Larry Powell is with us. Larry, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm happy. I feel good in this moment.
Yes.
Even given everything that's happening right now in the world, I feel centered and grateful that I am safe right now.
Yes,
It's a
absolutely.
privilege to be able to say, so I'm grateful.
No, it really is. It really is. Well, Larry, there is a question that I like to start off every interview with. It's a very simple question, but some might find it a little difficult to answer. Are you ready?
I am ready.
That question is, who is Larry Powell?
Mmm, enough. Number
Enough.
one. That's number one. Larry Powell is enough. I am enough. I am the son of Larry Eugene Powell Sr. and Chandra Janae Powell, both who are from Los Angeles, California, South Central LA.
Okay.
They are the children of, Larry Clayton Powell and Gene Hampton, and Richard Steele and Jeanette Thomas Byers. Um, and they were all born in Los Angeles. They are the children of the late great Reverend Eugene Thomas, who was a huge, incredible leader and pastor in Los Angeles. I'm a fourth generational Angelino, and I am proud to be that. I'm proud to be from South Central LA, which means like Inglewood, which means like Baldwin Hills, which means Leimert Park, which means like the East Side, like 81st and Avalon, which means like all these different areas south of the 10. I went to school though, and when I say school, I mean middle school and high school in North Hollywood, so the Valley, at a school called Oakwood School, which is an independent day school, a private school that was predominantly Jewish. I was the only black boy from the hood in my class. There was another, my friend Sean Wargo was the other black boy in the class, and but he lived in the valley, you know.
Right.
But it was, and that doesn't discount his blackness, but I just had that unique experience. And yeah, I graduated from there, and I went on to Carnegie Mellon University,
Mm.
and I had a wonderful, again, complicated but beautiful time there. I had a complicated but beautiful time at Oakwood. Went back after I graduated from that school to teach at Oakwood,
Wow.
realized where I had been, as you know what I mean, uh, in that environment, the privilege in that environment, the gift in that environment. Grateful that my mom, single mom of three, was able to do the paperwork and the meetings and be a young black woman in her 30s, in that environment, in those parent teacher meetings, and in that environment with all those other parents who were Hollywood parents, who were, the creator of this and that star in this, it was that kind of an environment. Um, that's who I am, but really I'm a child of God. I
Right.
love, and I love that I know that God is love. And so I really center being in a relationship with that, which is to say, I'm in a relationship with God, which is to say, I'm in a relationship with self love, and just getting better at that, honey. God will not be all 100% with that. But yeah, I mean, I can go on and on, but that's a bit. Is that too
Amen.
much?
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. I love your answer.
Okay.
Now, you are an award winning actor, writer, playwright, director, producer. But first and foremost, I want to know, where did you begin in all of those fields? Which one started first?
Thank you. I really believe that it's interesting. It was writing. I will say it was writing, but the writing came with performance because I would act out my own stories. So I have to say it starts with the writing because in the beginning, I ain't trying to be all churchy, child, but it is in the beginning. There was the word, okay, but it was in the beginning. It was the word there in Baldwin Hills, right on Santa Rosalia and Marlton. I think it started before that though. I would write my own versions of The Little Mermaid or that movie Ants, or and when we didn't have paper, I would write on the back of paper bags, literally with my one of my dad's like carpentry pencils, like those thick pencils that can write on wood and walls and stuff. I would like write on that. I would stay up late writing on my computer. My mom always tells the story. I would get in trouble because I would be up to like 3 a.m. or whatever writing, and I had to be up at 6 a.m. to get to school. And I did that, starting at very young ages, like before I was a teenager. But then when I got a camcorder, I would be able to record myself saying my monologues or with my little figurines or my little brothers and cousins and sisters and all them when they would allow me to or when they wanted to play with me. So yeah.
Okay. And then okay, so from writing, after that, at what point did you start to get into acting, and knowing that you wanted to get more into this field, or had you always known that you wanted to get more into this field from
I
an early
think,
age?
yeah, thank you. I think that my mom uh, knew that there was something different about this child. And also my sister Shannon, like, so both of us, she would do the things that she needed to do to like make sure that we were in um, extracurricular programs that supported the sort of, I don't know, like we were kind of precocious, we
Hmm.
were beautiful, we were, no, but we were in LA. Like you have to think about it. Like when you from LA and like they're the people, like your kids seems like they have that thing. You want to try and like get them into commercials or do
Yeah,
da, like you know what I mean. And so my mom tried that, but then like you quickly can sniff out that people are just trying to,
take
I
advantage.
think, right,
Hmm.
do all that. And so the blessing is that my mom and an amazing woman who is now my auntie, one of my other mothers, Wendy Raquel Robinson, they went to middle school together.
Wow, wow.
And my mom knew that she had a school. But what's really interesting about this is that I started off going to this other thing called All About Kids, which was a conservatory training program for kids in the inner city. And I did one semester there basically, and that was wonderful. But then I sort of had let that go, and then time went on, and I met this amazing human in my life named Zosha Rockmore. And Zosha and me, we lived in the same apartment complex. Like, and we went to the same school.
Mhm.
And our parents did not know each other. It just happened like that. And so we will be waiting for the bus because we had to be bused out from Baldwin Hills to North Hollywood because our parents didn't work out there. So like all the
Right.
black mothers had like chartered a bus like years before I had gotten there because black women are incredible. And so they were like, what can we do to get our kids there and not and also be able to get to work on time? And so we were like waiting for the bus to like go to school every day and then coming back every day. And then so, out there waiting for the bus, and all of a sudden she was like working on something called a monologue, and I was like, "What is that?" And she was like, "Oh, I go to this thing called Amazing Grace Conservatory." Da, 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 da. Wendy Carl Robinson from the Steve Harvey Show, and I'm like, "Yeah." That she's like, it's her school, and da, da, da. I was like, "Oh my god, I want to do that." And this
Wow.
flash forward, like I told my mom, she's like, "That's Wendy's school," and da da da, and it all worked out. So I ended up going to Amazing Grace Conservatory when I was about 13 years old,
Mhm.
and that really kicked me into high gear. Paired with, I was at Oakwood School, which I was telling you I went to, and my theater teacher there, Lee Lavery. I remember I was so nervous. It was so different from the public school. We could call our teacher by our first names. We didn't have to wear uniforms. You know what I mean? It was so much privilege, so much money, so much. It was just different. And it was a culture shock for me at first going there because I literally hadn't seen that many white people before ever.
Right.
Like literally. like like people think that LA is like so diverse, but we're segregated. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you,
Right.
I know you know now, but like, or you may have an idea, but it's like, yeah, I literally hadn't met a white person other than my doctor or like some police officers in person
Right.
until I
Yeah.
was 12. And
Wow.
so I was in culture shock, and we had an assignment to find a monologue, and I didn't do it. I sat in that library and I was like, I don't know what among I went to the plays, but I couldn't find anything,
Mm.
and I didn't have my work, and he was like, stay after class. There was this big assembly happening that day, and he threw a raisin in the sun in my chest. Boom, I caught it, and I read Walter Lee. He said, go to this page, and he said, read this line. And that's when I read, don't cry, mama, understand. That white man's going to walk into that door able to write checks for more money than we've ever had. It's important to him, and I'm going to help him. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
on the show, mama. And I just started reading it like that. And he was like, great, now let's go read it in front of the entire school. And I literally walked across the street in front of the whole assembly and read that monologue. And so those experiences, that experience paired with me then going to Amazing Grace Conservatory and doing like an all black production of Grease, directed by Denise Dowse. Like it it thrust me into this, I guess, lifelong experience of telling stories on stage, screen, and beyond.
Yeah. And then just fast forward, you become such an accomplished individual within your career. You've racked up so many awards, like the IAMA Theater Company Shonda Rhimes Unsung Voices Playwright Award. A lot of words to say. The Cornelia Street Playwriting Award,
Yes.
Michelle Film Festival's Best Comedic Digital Series winner, Michelle's Best Writing winner. You're
Yes.
you're a daytime Emmy Award nominee, a Webby Award nominee. The Miss Pat Show has been nominated for 2 Emmys twice, basically, and that all requires a certain level of dedication and consistency to achieve as many accolades. But talk about how through it all, you still can't let your foot off the gas, so to speak. You still have
Mm.
to keep working.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Foot on the gas and foot on the ground. Like, because
Yes.
you know what's so funny? Like, usually I would be like shy away from that, like, oh yeah, yeah, well, hey, yeah. But like this in this moment, I'm beaming at those accolades, these things, these awards, right? Because we all know that man gives the award, God gives the reward, as they say. And
Yes.
like for me, I'm so clear that everything that you mentioned, I could not even begin to experience without community.
Right. Right.
Like I'm serious, like literally, like my works literally take me collaborating with people that I love, trust, or meet and come to love and trust and know through the work.
Mhm.
And when you say all that back to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, we did that. We
Right.
did that. Like we did that. Even the Miss Pat show. I mean, that's the first show on BT that's nominated for an Emmy. That's first of all
That's amazing.
crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to what Jordan and Miss Pat is able to do,
Mhm.
and what we are all able to accomplish together as a cast, as a writer's room, writing team, production. I mean, those that soundstage is nothing like it. It really isn't. And yeah, so for me, I think that it's important for me to keep my foot on the gas because community is the thing. I was
Mhm.
just talking about that. I think this idea of celebrity is falling before our eyes, and thank God it is because it
Right.
doesn't serve us. What does is community. Like I'm telling you, like community over celebrity. I always say that. Like it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have to have that kind of mindset. Community over celebrity. It also reminds you that yes, you may have accolades, you may have a certain level of fame, but you're still human. You're still a regular person like everybody else. You're still equal to everybody else, and it just grounds you. So it never lets you, get to a certain point to where you feel like you're above everybody else. We all have a starting point, and some of us make it to where we want to be, faster than others. But that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody's better or greater than any other individual. So community over celebrity is definitely a good phrase to keep in mind and stay in that mindset for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Um, Now you're currently the writer or one of the writers. You're a staff writer on the Miss Pat show.
Mm-hmm.
How did that experience come about for you? Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. I love sharing that story.
Okay,
Can I say something quickly about what you just said, though?
sure.
You know, it is so important to me to just remind whoever is watching this and myself in this moment that like someone else's journey looks fast to us.
Yes,
Like it can only look a certain way to you. We can never see the lived experience because we're not the one living it. And more often than not, it's going to look faster because we are so eager to compare.
yes,
And that is the enemy. That
yeah,
is the thief of joy of the journey. Yeah, that is the lie. Because of course we know like the destination is the journey. But like I want to be able to say that from someone. I'm 30 right now. I'm 37 years old. I'm going to be 38 in June.
okay.
I just did my first guest star on a major series last year, and I graduated from undergrad in 2008
Mm,
from acting school
right.
and was poised to like take off then. It took all of those years.
Yeah,
And it's like, it is important for me to understand that that was actually maybe fast for me, especially considering that the things that I've experienced in my life, people don't experience in a lifetime. So if I experience one thing, even if it's like 17, 18 years later, it's still fast because it's something that people in my family or in my legacy, in my life line haven't even been able to experience at all.
right, right.
So there's just something to that. There's just something to that. And I do think that it's good to think about that and for it to introduce this next section because it's like I met Jordan E. Cooper, who is the creator with Patricia Williams um, of the Miss Pat Show
Mm,
on Facebook
really,
Messenger. Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Wow. How did that happen? Walk me through it.
Okay, okay. You asked for it. um, I met Billy Porter. Starts with Billy Porter.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all,
In
I met
person or virtually online? In person or online?
I met Billy in person.
Okay.
Billy also went to Carnegie Mellon University. Is from Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
I first met Billy actually watching Wendell Kell Robinson founded Amazing Grace Conservatory with Tracy Lamar Coley,
Mm,
who is one of my greatest mentors and someone who has impacted me intensely, like beyond. He's the
mm,
one who told me I had it in my heart. He said, "You have it in your heart. You have to go to New York. You have to."
yeah.
And we lost him. We lost him. I'm gonna say early for me because I needed someone like that, in the flesh now, But I know I have him in the spirit. We all do.
Right.
And I he showed us this video of he showed us this video of Billy Porter singing in the musical Grease and
Hmm.
singing Beauty School Dropout and just showing like how you can reimagine something to fit your instrument and really using that to teach. So when then we did Dreamgirls my last year at Amazing Grace Conservatory, I listened to the recording of Billy and Lilias White singing and Audra McDonald and Heather Headley and anyway, and I would be driving around, South Central, bumping that like it was Beyonce. You know, I'm bumping Dreamgirls, the Actors Fund benefit version. Okay, and I'm just like, and so I'm just letting you know this is the backstory to me even meeting Billy. So when I then was at Carnegie Mellon, and it was my senior year there, and Billy was just home visiting Pittsburgh, and whenever he was there, he would come back to the school to Carnegie Mellon
Hmm.
and pour into the students.
Wow. Yeah.
And this was when he would tell you when no one would hire him. He had a 10-year period where no one would hire him. But he
Right.
still made it a point to serve.
Right.
Billy was so there and just open and just teaching us master classes and not even just like, okay, taught a master class, gotta go, like being available and accessible to us after the class.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so cut to me driving with Billy and the rest of the black kids, because we were a minority in that program as well. But he made it a point to check in with us and on a real human level, and thus began this incredible mentorship that I still have till this day with Billy Porter.
Hmm.
Cut to Billy wrote a play about his life, about growing up in Pittsburgh, about coming being gay or queer in Pittsburgh in a very religious household. Cut
Hmm.
to years before, Escapade the Murkison was on my vision board, and I was like, she's gonna play my mom one day just because of the Lackawanna Blues movie. And guess who's playing my mom in this play that Billy Porter wrote about his life? Escapade the Murkison. And guess who's playing my grandmother, Lilius White, who was on that Broadway cast recording or that Actors Fund cast recording. And I'm playing Billy, the role that he wrote based on him. It really is, it's important to say that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But and so I'm in that process, and that process was a lot for me because I don't know, I think for a lot of reasons, and I was growing in that process, and I was learning to love myself more in that process. I was learning, boundaries in that process or my lack thereof, and a lot of different things I was learning in that process. And ping, here comes this Facebook message from this young cat named Jordan E. Cooper. And I'm like, oh, who is this? And he's like, hey, I'm moving to New York City. I see you've been keeping busy. Like, if you have any time, I'd love for you to, show me the ropes. And I'm like, in this crazy process, mind you. But I was like, absolutely, I'm going to make room for this young brother that's reaching out to me on Facebook Messenger, who I do not know, and who he had no idea of anyone else really in New York either. That's what he said in the message. He didn't know anyone. And so I was like, yeah, I'll get you a comp ticket. Like, come, we'll go out after the show and I'll tell you everything. We'll meet up. And we did just that. And we kept in touch. And then 5 years later, he was my boss.
Oh, wow.
And when I say boss, I mean the creator of the show. I mean, like, he literally, we had this relationship through Facebook Messenger. Like, he would write this play and I would write a play, and he would be like, oh, I want to do your play. I want to do your play at the new school. Like, you know what I mean? This and that. Or, hey, you did the mountaintop, right? I'm like, yeah. He's I'm doing the mountaintop. And we will be always this exchange of it, swapping notes.
Each other, yeah, bouncing off of each other and sharing and living within the passion that you both had.
To the
Yeah.
point where he was like, just text me out of the blue one day while I'm directing something at USC, The Brothers Size by Terrell McCraney. I'm in the middle of that amazing process. And he's like, hey, can you come? I just need some extra eyes on this thing I'm writing. And I'm like, sure, of course. And then so I go and meet him. And then we're at a table read and Miss Pat is there.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, we're on the Fox slot, and Debbie Allen is directing the pilot. And I'm in my first like note session with like then Hulu, and like realizing the notes that I wrote were the same notes that Hulu had.
Wow.
And in that process, learning about, oh, I'm enough. And by the way, it was for free.
That is crazy. And it's crazy how fast your life can really turn around, and stories like this can actually happen. And I say fast, relatively. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight, but just the simple fact that you just stayed steadfast within what it is that you wanted to do. You connected with somebody who had this same equal passion as you didn't know them from, you guys didn't know of each other before
I
that.
didn't know them from Adam, Eve, or Steve. Okay.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you two of you connected and really really hit it off and became really good friends, and big things came out of it ultimately, and that's just you just staying the course and staying consistent and staying passionate in what it is that you loved, and it turned out to be the best thing for you. Yeah, man, that's amazing.
God is good.
All right, right. So at that point, were you brought on as a staff writer, or did it start off where you were writing maybe X amount of episodes, and then eventually they brought you on as a staff writer?
That part of the journey is interesting for me because that's when I had to learn that life may introduce you to something, hold you off in order for you to do something else that's needed to be done, and
Mm,
then reintroduce you
mm,
to the flow of it that you're actually meant to experience. So I helped out with the making of the pilot, and that
okay.
was an incredible experience. I had this badge that said I was on the Fox lot for a week. I ain't never been on the Fox lot but for a couple of hours for an audition, child. I was like, I was like, what? Like, I remember I had this car that I was so embarrassed to be driving, but I was so happy to have at that time.
Hmm.
I'm 6 years sober now, and that was like right at also at the end of me not being sober at
Hmm.
that time. And so it was just like a lot of that was physically manifesting in my life. You could see it around me if you really were looking.
Yeah.
And but then you could also see these moments of grace. You can also see these moments where God never lets you go. God always has you in the center of their hand. And I was so blessed to be a part of that experience, but wasn't a part of the writers room for season one. And it was during the pandemic. And you know why? Because I was meant to write my own series.
Mm.
I was meant to, which I had already written it as a play, The Gaze, Gaze,
Yes.
and then I was meant to go along that journey of making it into a digital series. Um, during that time that they were shooting season one. But then once I was done, I saw Jordan in my neighborhood in Lamert. He was there at a ball and he come up behind me. I was like, who was that? What? Like, who was that? And he was like, brother. And he was like, I need you in the room for season two. And I was like, if it's in alignment, of course it's in alignment. What are you talking about? But also I'm like, because I want to only be where God wants me to be. I don't mean to sound too spiritual, but I'm serious. I really only want to be in alignment because
Mm.
I have been out of alignment and I know what it feels like.
Right.
So upon me like walking more and more in alignment and having my steps consciously ordered, because I do believe that they're always ordered. That's what
Mm.
I believe.
Mm.
But there's moments when you're unconscious of it, and there's moments when you're conscious of it. And so I believe that I'm conscious of the ways in which my steps are ordered, and I want to be in that. I want to stay there. And but it turned out, yep, it was all meant to be. And so I've been there season two, three, and we just finished four.
Right. And it's amazing how things fall in line, even when you least expect it. Like you said, your friend had just so happened to be at that ball and saw you.
Right.
Yeah, and the two of you connected, and it brought you right back to where you were supposed to be.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it real. I know I'm sort of like giving long-winded answers. Excuse me, Church.
No,
But I'm gonna keep it real. Like because I wasn't like a part of season one,
mhm.
like the rest of season one, because I was a part of season one. I was part of the pilot.
Right.
I have begun or began to second guess
Mhm.
and doubt that I was even wanted anymore. Or, those intrusive thoughts come in and you think like, well, I haven't really written on a network TV show yet before. And well, yeah, now I've made my own digital series. And yeah, it was nominated for 2 Emmys and won the Michelle Film Festival and it's a Webby Award honoree. But like, what does that mean to them? It's a new media project or it's just
Mhm.
something for the internet, really. And yeah, maybe I'm not. I mean, like literally going down and playing that scene, which is just a scene that you play in your head, but it can feel so real, especially when you can act.
Yeah.
It can feel real.
That's the devil just, that's the devil on your shoulder telling you like he's the one that's trying to sway you, away from what it is that what your calling is and what your passion is. Anytime you get close to it, that's when those thoughts creep up, and you start to second guess yourself, and you start to um, think that maybe the work that you have isn't as strong enough. as you
Right.
thought it was.
Right.
But you know, God always finds a way to come back and say, no, you knew
Mm.
what you had from the get go, and I'm going to show you that this is where you need to be, and that, like you said in the beginning, you are enough, and I'm going to place you right back to where I think you belong. And that's what he did, you know.
Well, that just blessed me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Now let me ask you this, and it still pertains to being a writer, or being a staff writer, because a certain part of some of the questions that I like to ask are along the lines of education and educating the audience too. For anybody who is interested in wanting to become a staff writer, um, although maybe your story might not be, the typical story of how you get into a writer's room, or something like that. How does one become a staff writer? Is that something that you would know?
Number one is it is deciding that they will be one. Number one,
Yes, facts. Yes.
deciding that it is true, your
Yeah.
reality, and you will attract your own specific and uniquely designed way to get there.
Mhm.
And it will be an incredible journey and story of your own. You don't want nobody else's. And
Right.
I
Right.
know that it is comforting, though, to hear a general way to
Mhm.
get there. And I do believe that I did have to do certain things to prove, right, what's already known
Right.
to those who may not know it. Like, so I did have to send in writing samples.
Okay.
I did have to, like, so Jordan was like, can you send me, like, do you have something that's like, I know you may not have written a sitcom spec, a script that's like this episode or like this show.
Mhm.
But can you send me like a funny play of yours or, anything that you have? And so I sent in like one of my more funny plays
Mhm.
and I sent in a writing sample that I had, a pilot, just to show that I know how to also do on screen format.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I always feel like it's important to also sprinkle in a little bit of
No,
education.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah, and give the audience, it's a way to let the audience know, like, especially the writers, if they're looking to get into this field, how they would go about doing it and how others have done it as well. And I know every story is not going to be the same. Sometimes it falls into your lap. Sometimes it's by the grace of God. Sometimes it's, it may take many, many, many years, and constantly trying to prove yourself until somebody gives you a shot. There's many variations as to how you can get into this business, but I always like to ask everybody that I speak to, as it pertains to what field they're in, because it lets the audience know, like, there's other people out there that might be like you, who are on the same path or same journey as you, although it might be slightly different. There's
Yes.
something that you can relate to.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, do you have any writing techniques that you use when you write?
Yes, like I said, I always write like at night, usually like through the night. Even when I try and write during the day, it's always me like it's just fussing with it. It ain't really,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, I write through the night, and there's something that happens with me. To be honest, like it's gonna sound a little, I guess, what people call woo woo, but it's just I really feel like I channel. I feel like it's just I'm used, But when I want to structure something out, I do like to set up a structure. Like, I like to outline. I like to think about the end. I try and see the end before I start writing
Mhm.
or see a moment that I'm writing to.
Mhm.
Usually, I like to rely on an image that I'm seeing within in my mind's eye and or a voice that I'm hearing.
Right.
I can
Right.
hear them. And so I start just writing the voices. Sometimes I voice memo it
Okay.
or, and then I transcribe.
Okay. All right. Cool. Now let's talk a little bit about your acting side. As an actor, you've been a part of so many plays in theater, such as The Christians, The Legend of Georgia McBride, Father Comes Home from the Wars, Brokeology, While I Yet Live, Curve of Departure, and many, many others. You have a long list, a laundry list that you've been a part of. What
I
is it
love,
about theater that you love so much?
I love it. I love the process of collaborating with other artists in a room and the live aspect of it. Like when you're in front of an audience, there are choices that you know, you can do all the text work, which I love to do. Like I
Right.
love to break down a script and really personalize it, but you can do so much work. There's nothing you can do to tap into the choices that will be available to you when an audience is there watching it for the first time and you're on stage truly having to remind yourself that it is happening for the first time. Or like some people say, act like it's happening for the first time, which for me, I always say it is happening for the first time. Honey, you weren't here yesterday, you know, but just like remind yourself that it's actually happening for the first time. But there are choices that just like happen through the collective consciousness, and it's so exciting to be that bold in front of others.
Yeah, yeah.
For
Uh,
me, it's bold. It's emboldening.
no, yeah. And so many other actors that I've spoken to, they say the same thing. They speak to the same, having the same feeling and going through the process. But they also mirror the same message as far as theater is more so. I don't know if it's necessarily the backbone, but it's definitely the best place to start as it pertains to acting, because that's where
Mhm.
you really get your acting chops and you learn how to act on the fly and do some improv, and everything is live and it's one take, and you don't have a second take, or hold on, let me get myself together. The show must go on, right? So yeah, you have to keep it moving and keep it pushing. So acting in theater it definitely pushes you, it strengthens you as an actor, and yeah, I'm sure you can speak to that.
It's the core of everything.
Mhm.
It's where the industry, the film industry, in a way, really kind of comes from. You know,
Right.
even like going back from Orson Welles and all these people. These are theater people who
Mhm.
were like doing radio shows. Then it went on to like doing things like Citizen Kane, and which become like the thing that all the filmmakers like. Oh, you have to, that's the one we all look up to. And I've watched Citizen Kane 1,000 times. Just to try and crack the code as to why is this the one. I watch those old like greatest movies of all time. I watch them and I whether I agree or not, I sit there and literally watch them over and over, literally over and over and over again, like for a week or so that
Mhm.
I can like get underneath it, really try and break the code. I've done that for like the top 10 of greatest movies of all time,
Wow.
that they say
Right.
are.
Say.
um, Interestingly enough, there ain't no black people in there. There ain't no black films. So for me, I'm always like kind of side eyeing it, like, okay,
Right.
I want to study what y'all think is amazing. What y'all think is bomb. I want to know why y'all think it is.
Right.
Um, but it's interesting to always find out. I'm like, that's a theater person. That
Mhm.
person started in theater. That's from the theater. That's from the theater. And I really believe it's because where this is where it all comes from. It's
Mhm.
another form of church in a way. It's a form of gathering and community again. It's like, it's necessary. It will never go away. It will change,
Right.
but it will never go away because we need to gather and come together, to a stage and understand things that we cannot, understand individually. We need to understand it collectively,
Mm.
with players playing out that which we can't articulate emotionally
Mm.
by ourselves in our own lives. They say when Sidney Poitier did A Raisin in the Sun, brothers was walking like him all over Harlem. was walking like Walter Lee. That's what they say in New York. And I've heard that from people who were there. Like oral history passed down, like you know what I mean. And then
Yeah.
you see Denzel walking like Sydney. This is human behavior passed down. Then my dad acting like Denzel, and it's like we are pioneers of human behavior. That comes from the theater and can translate to film. And thank God it does because it reaches more people.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And some of our best actors come from theater, and they still stay in theater even in between films. They always find their way back to theater to further, strengthen their chops and become a stronger actor and just stay sharp, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so it takes a lot. It takes a lot for sure. Are you able to name something that has been invaluable that theater has taught you over the years?
I love these questions. You're so good at this. Um,
Thanks, man.
it's taught me, wow, I didn't realize that. Mm. It's taught me what's happening right now. It's taught me the gift of the pause.
Yeah.
It's taught me the gift of trusting
Hmm.
in the unknown, which is so difficult in life, I think, for a lot of us. But when you take the stage, or even as a playwright, when you take the page, or even as a director, when you take the work, you
Mm.
know, uh, trusting in that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I've made all these plans, but I am open to what's going to happen in this moment. And I know that I'm most successful if I am engaged in that relationship or conversation or practice.
Right.
And it you cannot be a successful theater practitioner without being in the practice of surrendering to the moment and being present. And
Yeah.
so that's what it is. It's gifted me that, and I know how to slow down time because of it. I can slow down time, which sometimes in life you need to.
You really do. Yeah. And just to your point, the pause, that's a skill all within itself. Learning when to pause and just let the scene happen, or let
Mm-hmm.
let whatever is happening, kind of soak in or sink in. Sometimes that pause is what you need to drive it home or give the effect of what's happening in the scene.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's a skill all within itself, and a lot of actors who are coming up, um, that's something that is needed to learn, um, and become a part of their skill set, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about a role that you've been cast in, to play Rick James for Hotel Cocaine on MGM Plus.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that upcoming series if you are able to? If not, please let me know.
Yeah. Well, wow. You're the first person I'm talking about this with, like,
Okay,
online or in the interview. This is exclusive.
exclusive.
Um, it's one of the best experiences I've had so far. It's one of my favorite acting experiences.
Yeah. Did
Act-
did not, did you knowingly, obviously you knew you were going out for the role of Rick James, but did you purposely go for that role, or was that the role that was kind of given to you or sent to you?
I was directing my friend Hari's Outfest
Hmm.
screenplay. It was an exploration, this beautiful feature film that Hari has written, and I was working on that. I had a reading of that at Hollywood and Highland. We had a reading of that for Outfest, and then I had like Kendrick Sampson's, Bill Power birthday
Wow.
party like the day before. I have my godmother Michelle Shay's a reading that night of the morning that I directed. I had no time to be focusing on this audition. I knew I had this Rick James thing to do, and I was like, "What is it even giving, Joe?" I'm like, "Wait, what? Like, what is this?" But I'm grateful for, of course, the audition, and I love my manager Quinn and Quinn Crum, and so when she sent it to me, I was like looking at it, but I was also preparing and in the middle of directing my brother Josh Wilder's play Marty and the Hands That Could for Waco Theater Company, which is Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson's theater company.
Oh,
And yeah, and I was in the process of doing that, and so I was just really like at max, which I seem to function at a lot, yeah, I say I'm giving you all the full story so that you understand that like I didn't really have the energy to do it. In fact, I just like got the wig because I was too early for the birthday party. I didn't want to go in that early. And I was like reading over the sides and I was like, well, I guess I would need a wig. You know what I mean? I was like slowly, because sometimes in case I want to do it, because I wasn't sure if I was going to do the self tape. And I was on Hollywood Boulevard. I walked on there and I went in I got like this Cleopatra wig and I was like, that'll work. And I had the wig and I was like, okay. I got a flat tire and I showed up at my brother Matt Rascu's spot where I self tape a lot.
hmm
And I was like, okay, let's just do it. It was like after midnight, like, one of those like late night self tape sessions. I was so spent. Remember, mind you, I was up like at 6 a.m. and I had that whole day before. And I didn't memorize it or anything. And I just had to have it on the screen.
hmm
And I just sat there in my little wig, I had a leather jacket in the car. And I just read these lines. I was just present and forgot about it, really. Forgot
Yeah.
about it, but like loved how that felt. Loved that I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna sit back here because I'm in my self tape bubble. I mean, I was like, man, I feel like I need to be like right here. Like, I don't care if I'm in the frame or not.
Right. And you were because and just to add to your story, I visited your website. I saw a picture on your website, and that's exactly how you were posed. And one of the questions that I was going to ask, but you kind of answered it already,
Oop.
was what were no, it's okay. What were some of the things that you did to make yourself stand out and ultimately receive the role? But through your story of how you auditioned and self taped for Rick James, um, you know you 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 had a long day, but you still went ahead and did it, and you gave it the energy that you had, and you kind of just said, you know what, I'm gonna do this, give it a shot, and then send it off and not think about it anymore. And there's a lot of actors who do that, and when they submit their self tapes, and they don't really put a lot of pressure on themselves at that moment. And once they release that pressure, it allows for them the space to actually kind of grow into that character, and be more of themselves. And that's probably what helped you stand out. And just the fact that you did it differently.
Yes.
You were
And I think
you were
that,
yourself.
and I yeah, and you know what? You know what's so crazy? I always thank my friend Sufi Bradshaw
Hmm
because she was in the reading that morning. And afterwards we were hanging out, celebrating the work we had just done. And I was like, I have this audition and like, I don't want to do, I wasn't complaining, but I kind of was like, because no, for real, like, there comes a moment where you kind of experience a sort of fatigue around putting up the shots.
Right.
Like for real, like there comes a moment where you're just like, ciao. And
You
also,
spent
I'll be paying
right.
for my self tapes at this point. Like I invest for my self tapes to look good because I believe that at least I'm gonna be able to use this for a self tape reel because it's important to also be able to put your self tapes that you really love, that you get good feedback from, or really that you love on a reel because a lot of people don't have tape. A lot of people haven't booked the TV show yet or don't have a lot. Like you can put your self tapes together, and that's enough to show somebody that wants to see your work And so I like to like get high quality ones if I'm going to do that. And so I invest in these self tapes and stuff like that. And so, sometimes like, dang, I ain't, I ain't really got it right now to be,
Right.
and so it's like having to make those decisions.
Mhm.
And yeah, that moment I was talking about that with Sufi, and she was like, "But you know what? That's when I do mine. I'm always sure to do those self tapes." And
Right.
I was like, "You right," and that's what led me to do it. And I
Mhm.
do think everything you just said is correct. I
Mhm.
definitely listened to Rick James on like YouTube and like got into the spirit of him because I
Right.
hadn't really like keyed into his essence or his consciousness unto that moment. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And I wanted to do that. And so I did what I could, like on the way to Matt, waiting for the elevator to go up to Matt. It's like, okay, talk like that a little bit, like, okay, whatever, and I just go in and I just did it. And what made me stand out was the fact that, and I know it's for true, was that it was the performance. And because I did not know anyone on that team.
Oh, right.
I had not known about the audition because I think that lets people off the hook sometimes. That was Larry Paddle. He know everybody, and like
Right.
they did not know me, and I did not know anyone on that team.
Hmm. And but even though you were kind of spent for the day, you didn't have that added pressure of or the nerves or anything like that.
I think that honestly, though, I'm gonna keep it real. Like I think that for me, there is all I think because I grow up black and queer and gender expansive, which is a real thing for me. It's like I'm always a little bit slightly tripping about playing a heterosexual
Mm.
because of course folk love when sexual folk play queer
Right.
people and they
Right.
love giving them awards for it, but I don't think there's enough account taken for us doing that. There's
Yes.
a dissonance, there is a anxiety around being called out, being like being called out.
Mm.
There's not passing. You know, it's a lot. So I do believe that I knew I was playing a sex symbol in that moment, and
Yeah.
especially like who love girls and love women. I did know that about him, and
Uh-huh.
that's so not it about Rick James at all. Now I know it's so much more to this genius of a human.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but it's like in that moment I was like I had my nails painted.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
so I was being myself, but and it was also my training, I will say. The
Mhm.
creator did say, well, and I saw that he went to Carnegie Mellon, so I was like, he knows how to act.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that about him. Wow.
That's good to know too, because my mom fought for me to be able to go there and did what she needed to do for me to be able to be there. So
Oh,
that's why that's important for me.
yeah. Yeah.
Because you ain't always got to go to school like that.
No, that's very true. I have a question for you. Okay. Your feature film, Mother's Milk, a film quilt, in which you wrote, directed, starred in, and produced, won Seattle International Film Festival's New American Cinema Special Jury Prize. What's that film about?
It's about a young man on the run from the cops
Mm.
and looking for his mother, haunted by ghosts and these sort of manifestations of his like thwarted inner reality.
Mm.
It's based on a play of mine. It's called Titty Boy, which I
Okay.
started writing after Daniel Watts and some others organized this flash mob in the middle of Times Square, and I wrote it. And yeah, it was one of the first like Black Lives Matter plays that I wrote, and because I was tired of making it into a play, I
Mm.
just asked people to pick up their cameras if they wanted to and come and join me, and people did. So it's a collection of shorts, basically.
So hence the name of, or hence a part of the name of Film Quilt,
Yeah.
because it's a collection of.
Yeah, because I didn't know how to make that. I had never made a feature film before or anything like that. And I was like, all these people said yes, but then like they're all over the country.
Right.
like, or at least all over New York City. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? I can't have like the actor that I've been having play the lead, which happened to be John Clarence Stewart, by the way, or like
Mhm.
Carter Redwood, by the way. I can't. They're doing other things. I can't have them like go with me across this country and play Sparrow, the lead character's name, and all these plays. And then also like, Ambry Mom plays Lark. And I was like, how do I do this? And my brother Nick Ducassi, he was incredible. He was like, what if like different people played the lead? And I was like,
Wow.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
It's
tried it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's different. It sounds refreshing. And it's not one way to tell a story. It's multiple perspectives, but
Yeah,
kind of playing the same characters maybe.
it was incredible.
Yeah. Um, Now, how did you manage to produce your own project at that time, or was it just purely off of the like some of the relationships and friendships that you had? Did you manage to muster up some money for a budget, or did you do this purely like guerrilla style?
A budget.
Right,
Uh, mm-mm. I was learning about paperwork, learning about all types of things, like learning.
right.
What I tell you, I had never done. I told you my first guest star was yesterday. This was in 20. I'm theater, like
Yeah,
theater, like, um, but I had a community who wasn't like who had experience and who knew what to do and knew what it gave.
yeah.
I literally said, as a form of artistic protest, pick up your craft and take a scene that speaks to you the most and shoot it.
Hmm.
And that's what happened. So I think people like responded to that call of action with a sort of resource that was very, very, very giving and generous. But it helped me with the gaze. Like what I learned from making that, and I had that piece. It came together over some years. It finally was really finished, like in 2020, or like it was. It really was. It took some years because I had all these pieces. I did not know how they were all going to fit together, and it
Hmm.
wasn't until I roomed up with my roommate with my editor Joey Scoma, and we were sitting there, and he was like, "I know what to do with this." I was like, really? Because everybody else said I could never do anything with it. There's
Yeah.
too different, like really other like dope filmmakers. And I was listening to them, and he was like, no, I know what to do with it. And I was like, how much do you need? He was like, I could maybe do it in a month. Like he told me this number. I got on GoFundMe the next day, and I got to raising that money,
Wow. Yeah.
and we made it in a month.
Made it happen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. And Speaking
community.
speaking of the gays, that which is also a two-time Emmy-nominated digital series. Um,
Go
you
ahead.
spoke on it several times in this interview, but can you speak to what the gays is and was about?
The gays. 2017.
Mhm,
It was around, interestingly enough, right before the Miss Pat show moment. I had become really exhausted with the American theater as an actor, um, and it is again, as I told you, from 2008 to
mhm,
always like 2018, really, or 2017, 18. I had done these plays, like being the leads in these plays regionally and in
mhm,
New York and in LA, and it it takes a toll, um, because you're not making money, and I thought I was at first, and then I really had all of these experiences from like really struggling financially.
mhm,
Also because I think that just like I struggled with like being financially literate, and I also had so many lessons to learn around that I'm only just now learning even,
mhm,
and I but really I dealt with microaggressions, that really had macro effects on me, like doing all these plays for predominantly white audiences. Most of the plays I did were like black plays, or I would be like the black character, and it would be like the play that happens in February, the Black History Month play, or or not, or even if it wasn't, I would be like the black representation,
right.
and I would be speaking, giving my all often for people who did not look like me, didn't understand my experience. And that is also reflected in the industry, in the actual rehearsal rooms a lot of the times, and also administratively, even more seriously and importantly. And I just became exhausted about it or with it. And but I had a safe haven, the Lark Play Development Center, and John Eisner, who started the Lark. We had a LA writers retreat. He was like, "Go away, write the play that scares you the most." And when I went home that night, I just started to like pour out the lead character of the Gays, Jerome's this monologue, and it
Mm,
was really just like, ah, it's just like I
yeah,
was like, whoa. And then a play came from my experience, but really experiences of a lot of people's around me. And I think that a lot of people think that, oh, that's from when he was in that rehearsal room for that. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's actually a mix. And it's
right.
crazy that a mix can look like the one that you think you know about. And so, yeah, I had this play, and then the pandemic happened. And then Griffin Matthews actually released this YouTube video or whatever, however he released it, speaking against his experience that he had, speaking up about his experience that he had working on his play and musical. And then I was like, I have something to say too, and I'm not going to let this moment go by without me saying my piece. You know what I mean? When mine's a play, all the theaters are closed. And I was
Mhm.
talking about this, and then one of my great friends, Devere Isaac Rogers, was like, we should make it into a digital series. I was just thinking that because I had the Mother's Milk experience, which he also was a
Right.
part of. And I hit up my friend Angelica Robinson, my dear sister, who I went to Amazing Grace Conservatory with. I'm just saying the full story so people can like
Yeah,
overhear like it's connection, it's community, it's connectivity. Like
absolutely.
lean on the people next to you.
Mhm.
Like, I hit up Angelica, and I said, who I knew was a producer and who had already helped me with Mother's Milk too. And I was like, can you help me make this into a digital series? And she was like, yeah. And we
Wow.
did that. We're one of the first productions to receive clearance, SAG clearance to work in the pandemic. We did this in the beginning of the pandemic in
Wow.
2020.
Right. Yeah.
I called up TC Carson. I did not know him. I just called him. I said, I have this play. And he did it. Oh my gosh. Sharon
That's
Lawrence
awesome.
did it. Galen J. Williams did it. They
Mm,
all did it. Yvette
that's
Kissan, Freckle.
yeah. That is amazing, man. Now, on top of all of these amazing accomplishments and amazing projects that you have been a part of, you also seem to find time to give back in the form of teaching and lecturing. And you lecture at USC's School of Dramatic Arts. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that you lecture?
Yeah, I mean, I really what I do there is I'm available when it is in alignment, when it is
Okay.
in alignment. Like so I've directed a couple of shows there. I've directed Pipeline by my dear sister Dominique Morisseau.
Mhm.
And I've also directed The Brothers Sides there. And so that is a class that is called
Okay.
theater practicum, and so it really is a class about collaboration and how to build a play and how to work on a play together and all this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
that's really what I have done at USC. But more importantly for me, I love to teach on my own terms
Mhm.
whenever I can. So like in the pandemic, I started at the beginning of it. I started like the Powell Academy of Performing Arts, and I had
Mhm.
all these students online, and we went together, and I would do these lectures for them, and I would bring in people, all my friends who were very famous to them, or who are famous and doing a lot of great things. But we just come together and do these things called freedom lunches, and we just come and we just sit and we just talk, like not a panel, but like just
Right.
like talk, you
Yeah.
know, and yeah, like this, and then and then it evolved into Free the Arts, which is a nonprofit that I had started. And I did it again in a different kind of a way. And I started this
Mhm.
fellowship called the Shea Fellowship, and named after Michelle Shea and Shea Wafer, two women who have really just blessed me throughout my life. And
Mhm.
um, I got a grant and gave money to artists and just support as much as possible. Learned a ton about things, of course, administratively and just how to hold space. But we did some great work. We made a play, and again, it's all based on right before the pandemic started, I did this thing called the Freedom Workshop.
Hmm.
And over 2 weekends, I had some artists and we trained and did a play. So I
Wow.
love to train us up, but with a showcase at the end and with us being able to talk to each other like this.
And
So
by how long were these? So was it just a week long, a couple days? How long was these events?
it started off as a couple of a weekend thing. In 2020, it was over the course of 2 weekends or 3 weekends, 2 or 3 weekends. And then throughout the pandemic, it became like a 6 month. Like, let me just try a longer one, you know. And we're just here, we're all hanging out. And then the next version of it meant to be like a more of like a 3 month thing, but it became extended because recovering from the pandemic, it was
Mhm.
just a lot. And also this whole time I'm working on the Miss Pat show when it's called. And so I'm also learning how to do that while also being a writer on a very demanding show.
Yeah.
And so, and then also acting still whenever I'm called and led, and also working on my own plays
Yeah.
and my own pilots.
Yeah. Doing a lot, man.
Yeah. So.
Um, so what is next for you? What is next for Larry Powell?
I'm really excited about recording 3 of my plays for audio. I think it's really exciting to be able to like listen to the plays, especially with podcast listenership going up. I'm really excited for a live audience to come into an incredible warehouse space where there's no set, but there's like cool lights and like great
Mhm.
sound, and you have these mics, and you're like, what's gonna happen? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, like actors come out and they act the play, and they really relate to each other with no set and no props, and they
Mhm.
do it via mic, which is I've been able to exist in that audio drama space
Mhm.
through my work with LA Theater Works,
Mhm.
and so I've gotten a lot of great, you know, cool awards, but a lot of great experience through there. So I really want to do that next. It's called the Powell's Playground Passion Plays.
Yeah, that's a really interesting space. I've listened to a few podcasts that are designed that way, to where it's it's all audio based, of course, but it's telling a full story, and it's a series or things of that nature, and I find that interesting because it's more just the audios, the listening.
Yeah.
Aspect, and then you just let your imagination run wild as you're listening. I find that to be interesting, and I'm surprised that not many more people try to do this, or many studios try to do this.
I'm looking. I want to do it. I know the budget that I have to raise a certain amount of money for it,
Mhm.
and I'm just so excited to film it
Mhm.
as well. Like
Yeah,
film the process of making it, filming the live shows, and also having that as a form of media, having the audio as a form of media, creating a relationship with these stories with an audience that you build over time, and then doing the live show after that so that people can be like, oh, I know that play. I want to go see that play live.
right. Yeah, and then they get the visual aspect of it too after listening to it. Yes.
We're trying to figure out a way to innovate and to really help people get back and understand that live theater, you can't replace it, but we need to sort of revamp the relationship
Right.
to it. And this is what I want. This is how I see it being able to happen. Unfortunately, it's like I gotta figure it out quick because usually, you know, now that I'm said it here, you know, somebody's like, oh yeah, that's a great deal. Yeah. Hey, HBO, like, da, 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 da. Like, so please, like, if you know HBO, tell them Larry. You know what I mean? Don't you go off and do it, or
Right.
you go off and do it. But remember me, I'd love to come and collaborate with you, because really, it ain't about any of us. It's about the work.
Right. Man, and there's always space. I feel like there's plenty of space for us, especially as it pertains to people of color in these fields, because there's not a
Yeah.
lot of people of color in every aspect of the industry. You find some here and there, but there's still a certain void or a certain lack there. Otherwise, if there isn't, maybe that we just aren't privy to who are in these spaces, and that's a part of what I do is try to shed spotlight.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's plenty of room for this, so I would definitely say go for it and keep pushing. And if you have it on your heart and in your head to see it through, definitely see it through, because it's not on your heart and your
Oh
head for
no.
no reason, you know.
Hey man, no, I mean I have a meeting tomorrow with the audio production house. I'm literally just moving as if I know the funding is there,
Right.
which is what I've learned to do.
Yeah.
Like when you ask me, like, you know, if someone is trying to break into the industry or trying to become this or that, it's like, be it now.
Absolutely.
Because like if you want to be a great dancer and you go to a dance and like you sitting on the wall and you ain't dancing, like how's somebody gonna know you a dancer?
Right.
It's
And you're never
just
gonna and
that.
you're never gonna learn. You got to get out there and try and push yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like
Absolutely.
attracts like, more begets more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we gotta be doing it. So anyway, I'm just saying, like I gotta move as if I know. I gotta act like I know what's happening.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Larry, this is the part of the episode where I like to give the guests the final word, whether that be a piece of advice, words of encouragement, or a quote that you like to live by. You can say all three, or you can give one of the three. It's up to you.
This above all things, to thine own self be true. Being you authentically, as long as it ain't hurting somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
is truly the way. It really is. That's what I'm learning now. It's what I have learned. It's what continually keeps me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for this space.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. But that being said, Larry Powell, everybody.
Yes. Thank you so much. This is a bomb. I